Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Vidal. I want to talk today about following up on leads. So in the past, I've written articles or even a report where I talk about lead generation's a lot like baking that beautiful Greek dessert called baklava. There's lots of layers. But if you do it right, you can have something really sweet and wonderful. So know that there's lots of layers, and you can do this a lot of different ways. So test, learn, and evaluate some of the different techniques that we're going to talk about and find out what's right for you. So first, the first thing I would say is when it's following up by leads, be very quick. Be quick. There's a lot of reports out there. Even we put one out a couple years ago that talks about following up on leads, and after 24 hours, there's little increments that go on. So, every 6 hours after that, every 24 hours after that, that the leads become less qualified or harder to connect with. And those statistics are out there in several reports, not just ours. So, and there's some that say you need to follow up within the first hour or two. And so that's when they're, the most ready to talk to you. They're out there looking and researching the content, so you need to connect with them quickly. Another stat to help validate that point is, and I've seen different numbers, but the one I'll call out is 74% of buyers go with the vendor they first connected with. So think about that. 74% go with the vendor that they first connected with. So that's why the top of the funnel, educational type leads are so important. You want to be part of that process. You want to be there first. So it's a journey. Be patient. So here's some tactics I want to bring up. What we do over here, what we do with some of our clients is we send out an email right away. So the lead comes in, we verify it, validate it, and then we send an email. And we usually do it in a very personal way. It's one person sends out that email. And then that person, if they do call, they call later that day or the next morning, and they reference that email. And other ways, what we do is we'll do it through a nurture track. So we'll put it through a marketing automation platform, and we'll send that email out, and we don't call or follow up via email unless the prospect does something. They open it up and click. Then we'll follow up with another email, or then maybe that's when we'll call. And sometimes we assign points to it as well. I know there's some of my friends, my marketing friends, that I call them purists, where they do some very sophisticated nurture tracks, and they don't call until the prospect's done 2, 3, or even 4 things. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like to connect and call after at least one communication. But like I said, test, figure out what's best for you. Let's talk about some things not to do. And so I work with a lot of companies, and I've seen it done right. I've seen it done a lot of different ways, but I've also seen some things that were wrong. And one of the things I see, a company will get a batch of leads, let's say 50 leads at the beginning of the week through a lead gen program. And they're great at connecting quickly. We talked about that. But they don't do an email. They don't even do any nurturing. They get right on the phone and they start calling. And, around here we have some funny analogies. It's like dating, and, you just don't go too fast on the first date. It's too much. And so it's very similar to lead generation. It's too fast. One of the things that we see with that is some of the responses that they get, the people are turned off, and they say, hey, I don't even remember downloading this paper, even though they just did 2 hours ago, or they did the day before. Or, you caught me at a bad time. I'm about to walk into a meeting. I'm not interested. I'll call you. Don't call me. And so right there, you got off on the wrong start, or the wrong foot, because they were interested. They downloaded the report, or they registered for a webinar, but you caught them off guard. And so one stat that I wanted to bring up is calling prospects. The afternoon, statistically, is actually better to connect with a lead. And I've seen it from 2 to 4, even 4 to 6. So that 2 to 5, 2 to 6 time frame in the afternoon is actually better. Mornings, like the mid-morning, those are not good times. 9 to noon, 8:30 to 11:30, 8:30 to noon, not good times. A lot of people are in team meetings or about to go to a meeting, and they're focused on that meeting, or they have people in their office and they're focused on those conversations, and hard to get. So those are some tips on that process of getting started to connect with that lead. The other thing I would recommend for this follow-up, this lead generation follow-up, is I would recommend not having a traditional sales rep do that follow-up. I would have a dedicated person, an inside person. Some people call them inside sales. A lot of the companies, especially a lot of tech companies, call them SDRs, sales development representatives, or BDRs, business development representatives. I would recommend having one of those people or a team of people follow up on those leads, because there is a sales cycle. You may not be able to set up that appointment on that first call and hand it over to a salesperson. There's a process. It may take 3 or 4 days. It may take 3 or 4 weeks, and it may take more educating. And so that's fine. Education is important because, like what we talked about statistically, most buyers buy from the vendor they connect with first. So the other thing that's good is these educational pieces that you're using, like white papers or webinars. You're not using a lot of sales speak, and so your SDRs shouldn't be using sales speak as well. It should be very educational. There should be language like, I noticed you downloaded this report. We have another report I think you'd be interested in. Can I send that to you? And they're always giving. They're always educating. The other thing that the SDR can and should do during that process is connect on social media. And maybe even the sales rep that they're going to assign it to can connect on social media. And so, yes, they might have had an email, or they might have called them once and talked to them, or even left a voicemail and maybe didn't talk to them, but they can connect on social, and they can start a relationship there. And sometimes it's just by liking and commenting on certain posts or sharing more information. But once that relationship gets going, and sometimes it could be a matter of days, sometimes it takes a lot longer, but then they can take that conversation offline via the phone or email, and that's where that sales process then can start. So hopefully those are some tips to give you some best practice on what to do in the sales follow-up, or the lead gen follow-up. I'd be interested in hearing some of your tips or some of your horror stories. I gave you a couple, and I've got a few more, so interested to hear what your thoughts are. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Marketing MASH. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.